Realm Ranker here. So here's my video that I recently mentioned in my previous book review video. Labyrinth, and its theories about it that are so crazy. And it's my humble obligation in this video to give people a walkthrough about all the theories and also which ones aren't or are real. In this video, I will be analyzing web sources of evidence to prove my point. I will also be reviewing the novelization storybook that the film is based on. But anyhow, I get that Labyrinth is a cult classic, but hey, even I'm fond of the film. So Labyrinth is the Goblin King Jareth who tries to lure a human girl called Sarah into his world by kidnapping her brother. Now there's a lot of versions of the Labyrinth, including Return to the Labyrinth, which is actually a comic book sequel of the movie. Then we have the Marvel DC comic, which is based on the film. I will not be delving into those because they are not linked to the actual timeline of the movie. Neither are they official versions, however. The novelization came out before the movie, so it is very much legit. So Realm Rankers, let's get ranking. Let's start by breaking down the theories. 1. Multiple Sarah theory. This one argues that Jareth, a long time ago, fell in love with a human woman called Sarah. He couldn't be with her because of her spoiled sibling and family. He decides to then kidnap the baby, turn it into a goblin, then goes to the fairy world, which he so-called merely discovers like Captain Hook in Neverland, and builds this huge place for his beloved. Only to find out, since time is more quick in the mortal world, his love is already dead of old age. Then he goes mad for centuries and kidnaps all the Sarahs of the world, turns all their baby brothers into goblins because they all fail to save them. Still, Jareth doesn't find the Sarah he wants. That's why Hoggle presumes Sarah's name is Sarah, because they were all Sarah. Also why the book Labyrinth exists in the human world. One of the other Sarahs escaped and wrote a book based on her experiences. So this theory really intrigues me. Problem, none of it is true. Let's elaborate. In the storybook novelization, Sarah is claimed to be the first human, woman, or child to ever reach the center. Thing is, in order to get out of the labyrinth, you need to at least make it to the center of it. Which means no other Sarah or anybody, as a matter of a fact, ever made it out of the labyrinth. Also, Jareth never found the labyrinth. In the novelization, the book emphasizes that Jareth is as old as the earth itself. He's been around in the labyrinth also when dinosaurs were roaming the earth, because in the novel, it mentions that Jareth has a pet pterodactyl. So maybe he magically recreated one as pet? However, there is no evidence to support that he did. Maybe it is a real pterodactyl. If Jareth is old like that, and certain parts of his world like the Bog of the Eternal Stench is 1,000 years old, that means he lived there since for like forever. Which is why Jareth's favorite quote is, "It's only forever, not long at all." It's also because time runs slower in his world, but just think about it for a second. And final note, Jareth never kidnapped any children. Plus some of the goblins were female. So all of the goblins being the other Sarah's baby brothers doesn't make sense at all. 2. All of the goblins were once babies that Jareth kidnapped. Okay, truth. All the goblins, or at least most of them, were all human babies. That is very much true according to the novel at least. However, again, Jareth never really kidnapped any of them. In the novelization it says that, in the old days people used to abandon their babies or offer them to Jareth. Which reminds me of the medieval belief of changelings, where the people would abandon their sickly children in a forest because they believed their baby's soul had been taken by fairies. What species is Jareth? Of the Fae, which is another term for fairies. We know that Labyrinth was inspired by Maurice Sendak's book, Outside Over There, where Fae goblins steal a sickly baby that gets wished away by its sibling. Also, this book was inspired by the changeling myths. So Jareth took the babies, but if people really abandoned them or even offered them, that leads me to think that I don't really consider that to be kidnapping. I don't know what to call it, but I don't think the word kidnapping can be used here. 3. The labyrinth is not real. Jareth isn't real. A world of Sarah's imagination. Okay, so out of all the theories, I have a lot of beef with this one. Let's start with this. If Jareth isn't real, why does the movie start in the owl's point of view? We all know that Jareth transforms into the white owl. Also, the novelization also starts in the owl's point of view. Second of all, How does Jareth know what plastic is and Hoggle doesn't? Why does Sarah seem so surprised and frightened when Jareth appears in her bedroom? If it was her creation, all of it, why did she not believe that it could be real? Basically, this theory suggests that Sarah is such a fan of the Labyrinth franchise in her world that her belief in it and her imagination willed it to be real. If so, then why were the goblins there before she wished away Toby? In the novelization, Sarah goes to the bedroom to check on Toby, but this chapter starts with the goblins being in the house before she ever entered the room. How can one imagine something that isn't there? Or imagine something you don't know? If you're not imagining that it's there, then it's not there to you. This is the same instance with the owl. Sarah is lost in her own time and thought while focusing on the book, she doesn't even realize the owl is watching her. And if the world is her creation, why can't she ever manage to say the words to use over Jareth? You have no power over me. That's because they're not her words and not her world. The words are part of Jareth's world and story. She can't even use the words at the end of the story. I believe that her belief in herself, not in the Labyrinth story, that was the thing that helped her say the words. Hoggle is always doing the opposite of what Sarah wants. The cleaner machine even nearly could have killed Sarah. Very nice if the world was of her imagination. Now, why put so much effort into conveying how Jareth felt towards Sarah in the film when he could potentially not be real? There's this song called Within You which Jareth sings at the end of the film. The lyrics mention, "How you turn my world, you precious thing. You starve and near exhaust me. Everything I've done for you. I move the stars for no one. You've run so long. You've run so far. Your eyes can be so cruel, just as I can be so cruel. Oh, I do believe in you. Yes, I do. Live without your sunlight. Love without your heartbeat. I can't live within you. I can't live within you. I can't live within you." The song mentions the sentence, "can't live within you." Some people debate that it means Jareth lives inside Sarah's imagination memory. I think this sentence emphasizes the huge gap in Sarah and Jareth's world, meaning maybe he wants to bridge the gap and live beside her, not exist in a different time and space. The song says, "You've run so long and so far." Sarah ran from her pain. All that time that Jareth was watching her, saying you've come so far. That he believes in her capabilities. But despite everything he's done for her, she still sees right through him. That he can't live without her, but he can't live within her because he's too far away. Hence live within her, live within the world she knows, the human world. Notice he says, "How you turn my world, you precious thing," referring to the Labyrinth as his world. Ergo, Jareth is in my opinion real. To how much of an extent is another discussion I will pry into later. 4. The Labyrinth is a mere coping mechanism for Sarah. Again, this is a similar theory to number 3. Yes, the book Labyrinth is a coping mechanism. The novelization even confirms this. And also that David Bowie is in a photo next to Sarah's mother, which is stuck on Sarah's mirror. This man is supposed to represent Jeremy, the second love of Sarah's mother, Linda Williams. In the novelization, Sarah is fond of Jeremy, even sees him as a good friend. But Jareth and Jeremy are not said to look alike whatsoever. Jeremy doesn't even have blonde hair or similar facial features. Now people think that because some things of Sarah's bedroom are similar to the things in the Labyrinth, that she was only ever dreaming of going to the Labyrinth, and that she imprinted her memory into this dream. I strongly disapprove of this, because certain items in the bedroom were placed in the bedroom scene by the film crew of Labyrinth as a tribute to the Labyrinth movie itself. E.g. Alice in Wonderland and the book by Maurice Sendak were placed in the room as a tribute item. Not to send a message. If this is the case with these two items, who knows what other things were placed for no real reason. Also, some items were placed into the movie to mock viewers or to confuse them. E.g., the random David Bowie heads hidden throughout the entire film. So there is no evidence to support this properly. 5. Jareth was a baby kidnapped by the previous Goblin King. So this one is a tricky one. No, not true. Maybe true, in a different alternate timeline. In the original Labyrinth timeline, movie and novelization, Jareth doesn't have parents. In this other storybook for kids, it explores a timeline that doesn't exist in the original. Basically, Jareth told Toby the truth of his lineage as to why he looks human and the goblins don't. Jareth was kidnapped from France from a woman called Maria. He was kidnapped by the Owl King, the goblin ruler before him. Maria is forced to save her son but fails. Jareth is raised by goblins and becomes the heir to the Owl King's world. However, in the original plot line, Jareth was alone since infinity, and he created all the goblins we get to see in the film. Which means this Owl King plot line never actually happened. The book was created for kids, not to be taken seriously. It was also made because the Jim Henson Archive had less money for a period of time. How cruel is that? 6. Everything that happened to Sarah was just a mind control experiment. And no, in the novelization one would get vibes that it is a mind control experiment. But the movie makes me feel differently. Jareth is much more emotional in the movie. The one in the book is casual, emotionless, calculating, cruel and perplexing, but is fascinated by human emotion. However, regardless of what version, book or movie, Jareth is fascinated by just watching Sarah go through the labyrinth, even making it trickier for her to do so. Certain things in the movie feel set up, like Jareth knew Sarah was going to do that, and he loves testing to see how far she'll go to save Toby. So yeah, in a sense, it sort of was a mind control experiment. But not at the same time. There's not enough evidence to suggest otherwise. Final note, my theory is this. Jareth is real. He has been alive since the dawn of time. He is the only one that looks like a human. He lives in a fey world where time runs differently. He created goblins so that he wouldn't be lonely. Humans used to communicate with him at first, but after centuries and into the modern world, nobody believed in him anymore. So Jareth created the book, and placed it into the hands of a random mortal who then published the book in Sarah's world. But even this didn't work, though one day a human girl with a huge imagination falls in love with the book. Jareth never feels at home in his world, since he's the only fey creature who looks like a human, so he would take regular trips to the human world, but is only able to do so in another form since he's not human enough. Which is how Jareth knows about things like emotions, bosom companions, and plastic or cake. After a while he becomes fascinated with humans, then he discovers Sarah, a young teenage girl who believes so much in this book. It makes him feel alive and acknowledged again. He then becomes obsessed with her, wanting to know everything about her, wanting to see the world through her eyes. But knowing he cannot do this, since he cannot exist in the human world, he tries to find a way to bring her to him. He studies everything in her bedroom, imprints those things into his world. The wooden maze, the dog, the fiery plushie, the room with the staircase, and more. He tells Hoggle his plans, which explains why Hoggle presumes that her name is Sarah. He then enacts his plans, kidnaps Toby so that he can lure Sarah into the labyrinth. He changes time, plays the villain because she sees him as the villain, kidnapped her brother because she asked him to. But what Jareth wants is to keep Sarah all to himself. Trap her in the labyrinth so that he can watch her forever. Hence all the distractions, and the fact that he hoped she'd have to start all over again. But knowing that she would make it further, he had built an entire replica of her bedroom just to keep her there, and interact with her forever. He wants to be the only person in her life. Keeping Toby as leverage. Jareth is always fussing more over Sarah than he plans to turn Toby into a goblin. But all he wanted was to make the labyrinth experience real for Sarah, because seeing her develop feelings in the human world made him develop feelings for her. At the end, when she jumps, he could have let her fall to her death. When she thinks she wins, Jareth doesn't let her go because of the fact that she won. He lets her go because he realizes he will never be able to keep her in his world. Hence the look of disappointment on his face. So folks, that was my long video. Would you like to have seen a second Labyrinth movie? And do you know why they didn't make a sequel initially? David Bowie would have liked to have reprised his role as Jareth. But a Labyrinth sequel wasn't made quickly after the original because of the film's initial commercial failure, and the loss of its key creators, Jim Henson and David Bowie, in 2016. Now, though there may be hope for a sequel that is, according to online resources, in the works at the moment, let's hope it's the case. Feel free to like or subscribe